When I was a boy, they called people like me retarded. They put us into institutions. I lived in one for 30 years. This is a film about how things have changed for people with an intellectual disability.
When we imagine the future of our children, we see them enjoying lives full of rich experience and opportunity. But for some families, reality brings something very different.
We'd lost a girl at just a week before too with a brain tumour. Len was 6 months old when she died. But then when he got a bit older, I thought, oh, perhaps he's got a brain tumour too. And we took him back to the doctors and they said, oh no, you wouldn't get two with a brain tumour. One day there was 2 or 3 doctors in the room and they called me in and they just said straight out, well, he's no good, mother, he's brain damaged, he's retarded. Put him in a home and have another baby. Oh, it just about killed me. I didn't know how I got home. I got Lenny outside the door. I must have cried for half an hour, just sort of absolute shock. How I got home, I don't know, because I walked across parks and all sorts before I came to the tram to come home.
Some parents make almost incredible efforts to keep their children at home. The Moores have 2 mentally retarded boys. Now, why is it you do this?
Just like any parent of any normal child, you want to keep your children with you. You can't help it. I think it's just a natural reaction. They're your own, and even though they're handicapped or they're sick, you just love them just as much.
Do they sleep at night?
No, they don't sleep at night at all.
Well, how do you get on at night?
Well, we strap them in their beds at about 12 o'clock and drug very heavily, yeah. But, you know, it's the unbroken sleep all the time. We might be hopping up and down then all night. You know, that's what's made it so hard. We just can't keep up with it.
But when did you know that he was abnormal or subnormal?
Well, he would have been nearly 3 when we found out that... and we went to this man and he just looked in his eyes and said, yes, he's mentally deficient. And he looked at the little one, who we thought was quite bright. He was only a baby, and he said he's exactly the same, but not quite so bad. They have no future, either of them, of course. They're just going to live out as long as they've got in the asylum. But this, of course, is just in this world, and we know that they're quite sinless and pure, that they'll go straight to heaven when they die.
Few parents had much idea of the life that lay ahead of their children in the institution. asylum, a shelter or sanctuary, a refuge for people who had nowhere else to go. That's what it meant to start with. Most of them were begun by individuals who had a vision of caring for others. Life was hard if you were poor, even for the strong and able. If you had a disability as well, you had very little chance of making it alone. An institution, if you could get into one, was often the only thing standing between life and death. Lots of people didn't live very long in these places. Some survived, though. Survived year after year. No one knew much about intellectual disability. Treatment was mostly to do with controlling people's behaviour. There was a lot of confusion with mental illness, which resulted in some inappropriate treatment. There was no chance of having a full and interesting life in there. There was little or no contact with the outside world. Time just passed by, years becoming decades, memories fading away. Over time, the institutions changed, just like schools and hospitals changed. The government took over responsibility for care, and there were new ideas about how things should be done. Visiting parents found professional staff working to develop their children's potential.
Mrs. Temby, how old was Rowan?
Rowan was 1 month old.
And he's been here in Kew Cottages?
I was never so relieved in my life, and I met one of the most wonderful people I've ever known, Sister Kiwi Maggie, who was there then.
They do need love if they want to develop.
Oh, well, I must come. He's my baby. And I come as often as I can.
All his life at Kew Cottages, he had wonderful staff caring for him.
But they were still institutions. You still had people with an intellectual disability all grouped together with no normal life.
Two charged people, I suppose, just came and took him by the hand, each of them, walked him off. And we weren't allowed to see him for 3 months. And then when we did go back to see him, he got upset because we were going home and leaving him again. He used to have special crying places where I'd be a bit private out in the garden. He used to go and secretly cry. I never used to want my mother or anybody else to see, because it was cruel to think that the poor kid would have to go away from the home that he'd been brought up with and all his toys. He used to take 1 or 2 things down, but they'd always end up smashed. We'd try and keep our good times away from him because he felt that he wanted to be part of it. So we'd feel a bit awful about that.
1500 space sound. When you die, space sound. 4300 space sound. It's an awful place.
I went to a farm that was locked ward, and there's a big yard, and you lay in the yard, come inside, you're doped up with medicine, and you go out again. And
I was there for twisties and somebody too, and then I left the joint. I kicked the nurses out, I kicked them out. I said, get out, you rotten rascals, I'd get after you if I'd catch you.
One day you scrub all the skirting boards, and then the next day you scrub all on your hands and knees. That was in their floor.
Best your place on real hard floors, in that days, and then that, and that days. Hard floors and then that, real hard floors. I was in one great big hood looking floor that stunk. Oh, my God, I enjoyed it. And the place smelled up there. It just completely stunk up there. Oh.
I was laying in the bed, and the doctor asked me a few questions. Do I hear voices? And I said, no, I don't hear voices. I said, I just wanted to run to me mum. The next day I had to have shock treatment. I had 7 shock treatments. And they didn't even ask me, if I wanted it or things like that.
I hated the joint, I hated the place. I got out like a snake too. I nicked off any old day. But businesses couldn't find me out there. So I escaped. And climbed out the walls too. Climbed over the walls. And nicked off that first grade. Nicked off out here. I did, didn't I?
Once you're in those places, you're in there and that's it. It was a waste of time.
First I went to 24. Up in 24, I was very small, I'd done 5.5, my mother brought me. She just brought me in, and I had very dirty hair and my clothes was no good. At first I tore my hair up and all my clothes had to be destroyed. And I was very, very naughty. I told you that before, you remember? He belted me up and all, and I threw all the nurses' aprons all over the floor. They all full on, all the baths I threw on the floor. I threw all my tea, I threw the tea at them. Yeah, I don't know how my mother put me there. But she didn't like me.
I will put him in the gully. That's why I'm up here for. See? Because of that. Well, he says, you big John. He said to me, like this. We don't want you back here anymore. That's the way it was. So I put him in the gully. I took one gun candle, broke the tree, bang. That's what I'm here for. Because he put them there.
Some people with mild intellectual disabilities ended up in institutions for the wrong reasons. They didn't need that level of supervision. But after 20 years of institutional life, they lost many of their skills and became much more dependent.
Places like these are shut off from the world. They segregate people, and the end result's predictable. The behavior they generate is abnormal. You have to bear in mind that for most people, being in a place like this is not just a phase, like going to hospital or boarding school. This is it. This is their life. And these large-scale segregated environments are not good for staff either.
It's not a coincidence that all over the world, scandals are linked with institutions for people with an intellectual disability. It just seems to go with keeping vulnerable people locked up behind closed doors. And you won't solve it by removing offenders or redesigning buildings. The whole system needs to be changed. Some people say institutions are the place for people with an intellectual disability. They can be fed, kept clean, and given things to do. Perhaps they feel the disabled have no right to want anything more from life. This view is based on the idea that there are different kinds of humans, those with full rights and those with something less. This is not a new idea. When Europeans first settled in Australia, many of them regarded the Aborigines as being subhuman. Some writers even claimed that they had no souls. More than 100,000 intellectually disabled people were exterminated by the Nazis under the euthanasia program. Gestapo documents referred to them as animals in human form, not fit to be part of the new order. The Nazis started with them. Then they moved on to Jews, gypsies, enemies of the state, anyone they didn't like or didn't value. In the end, they gassed their own wounded soldiers. Humans are humans. The blind person can't see. This other person can't write. The intellectually disabled person has some particular problems. But that doesn't mean that they don't want anything much from life.
Would I like to leave? I wanted to move out, that's all. I wanted change. I've been here too long, you see.
Everyone has their own hopes, but there are some things no one can manage without.
I have worked with some people who've caused severe injury to themselves, and some people have actually been known to cause their own blindness.
Many of these people have very limited ability to communicate. They're expressing their extreme frustration and alienation, with tragic results. Demonstrations like this heralded a new era of change. People began moving out of the institutions to live in the community.
In 1986, the Victorian government passed a law.
The Act of Parliament said that people with an intellectual disability had the right to share in the quality of life enjoyed by the rest of the community. People working in the area had to relook at policies and redirect spending. Soon, hundreds of people began moving into houses in the community.
Throughout the client network, I became known as the lady with houses. Walking around the grounds, clients would approach me and say, can I go and live in a house? When am I going out? And they'd get groups together and come and say, we all want to live together. Of course, the reality of moving out, it's just not that simple.
These people were entering a new world in which many new skills would be needed. For some, the demands were too great.
I cleaned the whole lot up. And this time I go outside, when I do go out again, I'm not going to lift fires, I'm not going to break in the windows, and I'm not going to break up ponds that about the people.
The right support services are vital. People can't be moved out into houses and then left to sink or swim. And parents can't be asked to keep their disabled child at home unless the support they need is there. Some people will always need a lot of support services. Others may get by with someone calling in just once or twice a week. The important thing is to start with the individual and work out what would be the least restrictive living arrangement that still caters for that person's needs. That is what should be provided. Nothing more and nothing less.
Come on. Ma, drink. Want to drink?
Oh, no, don't end up to the dog. I'm not a baby now.
Give us some now, don't you?
Makes you feel like a home, it is. I like living here. It's very nice here, better and cool.
Oh, yes, I do miss them. I miss Hannah, but when I first come then I wasn't. You know, it was very hard, you know.
It's more like a home, it is.
But it's very hard for me, but now I'm used to it.
I help me here. I like me real nice.
Because it's more nicer here. And we go out and things like that, we do.
You're just sweeping in the yard.
It's a club, it is, a club. And we have lunch and we have a concert, and then after we have a concert, we have afternoon tea there, we do. No, I go over and ask them, are they all married?
Married, she's after them.
Peter and Artie live here with two other people. Two support staff help them do their own cooking, shopping and cleaning. The staff also assist with work, study, recreation and things like medical care as well.
Move! Bugger you!
Side. Yeah. Take the horse, take the car up.
Yeah.
Only wanted one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one. Take this one back.
I feel mad.
Right? And then soup on the bottom. All right?
Yeah.
Okay? You know how to do that?
Yeah.
Adrian works here 4 half-days a week. He gets himself here by train. He had on-the-job training for 3 months and now he's a permanent employee. He has to meet the same productivity requirements as everyone else.
Well, chicken nuggets, have a bite, finish, it's to go bigger. Now that. 1, 2, 3, 4, follow that.
I've got a mild intellectual disability. People describe it as being slow or backwards. That's what they said at school when I couldn't do maths. I probably have a low mark on an IQ test. Some people with an intellectual disability are good at some things. They might have a good memory, for example. Everyone's different. People get intellectual disability mixed up with things like schizophrenia, but it is not a mental illness. Perhaps someone might have both. They might have some physical problems as well. But many of us are fine in every way. We just have below average intelligence, which means we have more difficulty with some of the demands of daily living than most other people. That's not the same as being mentally ill.
Lots of people ask me if people with an intellectual disability are a danger to the community. There is a fear out there that intellectual disability is somehow connected with criminal behaviour.
In fact, society has much more to fear from male drivers under the age of 25. When problems do emerge, we need to look at why. For example, these people have normal sex drives, and yet they're often treated as if they were asexual. What do we expect? They need education and to be included in a normal social environment where they can see the kinds of behaviour that are considered appropriate in this society.
People ask whether the intellectually disabled really are better off in the community, where they may face physical dangers and the emotional trauma of rejection, boredom, or loneliness. But we all choose to take risks. When we travel, get married, or try a new job. It's part of having a full life.
Well, I think we've been in the community for all them years, what I reckon. It's been very good, you know. I like it in here anyway, out here, for sure. It's better. Better not be in this stinking place up at Sunday, I tell you that much.
I'm at school and I'm happy with it at the moment. It gives me more good opportunities to meet people like you, talk and understand what the world's going on.
It's good because I've left home and I'm coping really well and I've got a good steady job. I'm engaged in it. It's great.
I like it that way anyway because it gives me more time than what I'm doing anyway. Just gives me more time than what I'm doing.
Sometimes the people who are shocked and outraged about institutions are the same people who don't want to have anything to do with intellectually disabled people living in their street. And yet, in the end, their support is vital. The professionals can do their job, families can be supportive, and the intellectually disabled person can put everything into making it work. But there'll still be something missing. We could all dream of a society in which all of us are accepted and supported. Instead, we're faced with growing violence, fear, alienation.
What about it? Ice cream and chocolate on top, and some strawberries. Oh, got lollies and ice cream. Looks nice.
That is gorgeous.
Look at the strawberries.
There are some things money can't buy, the government can't provide, and laws can't enforce. In the end, the question of how we treat people depends on what we're aiming for. What kind of society do we want for the future?